Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies, and today we're going to talk about some of the absolute goriest movies worth watching on Netflix right now. So this is a very mixed list. There is a lot of horror on this list, as you would expect. They're all gory, and unlike usual, I'm not going in terms of what's the best movie, even though I will talk plenty about that. I'm going in terms of the goriest, and by the time we get all the way to number one, it is the absolute goriest movie on Netflix right now, one of the goriest movies I have ever seen. And before my number 10 pick, this video is sponsored by CyberGhost VPN. I'll tell you later in the video how they can help you watch more movies with your current Netflix subscription. But my number 10 pick is one that I have not talked about on the channel in a long time because I used to talk about it so much I had to retire it for a while. That's Green Room. Now this one, it's the least gory, but it has some intense moments in it, more so than even some of the more gory movies on this list, just because they kind of hit you out of nowhere. Even with me telling you, the gore in this movie is shocking. It feels very real, but it's not pervasive. It doesn't go throughout the entire movie, but it's a major feature, and when it hits you hard. This is a really great thriller from Jeremy Saulnier, who also did Blue Ruin and Hold the Dark. This is one of his more accessible movies, just meaning it's pretty straight down the line. He doesn't really try to go anywhere too highbrow with this particular movie, yet everything works well. Patrick Stewart plays a great villain, and there's just some good storytelling. It keeps some themes together and stuff. It's just really well crafted, really well put together. It's my type of movie. It's one of my favorite ones on this list.
Maybe you should join us for a ride.
Oh,
Get out of my house.
My next pick on the list is He Never Died, starring Henry Rollins. Now, I like Henry Rollins a lot, and he plays a pretty good character in a lot of movies, but very rarely do you see Rollins as the front man for a movie. He does a great job in this one. I would say this one is going to appeal to fans of the TV show Supernatural. I've actually said that before, but if you clicked on this video, you want to see some gore, and you like that show, there's a very good chance He Never Died is going to be a real gem for you. It is a low-budget movie, but it's got some really cool performances. It's got kind of a quirky edge, obviously a dark slant to it, and it all kind of works together. It reminds me a little bit of like Bruce Campbell movies, which yes, there is one further down on this list, but I really like this one. It was a surprise for me. I'd probably rank it towards the back of the list in terms of quality and just how good of a movie it is, but still, it definitely makes the top 10.
Would you rather electrocute yourself?
Oh no, I see where this is going.
Or
I don't think I can do this either.
15 seconds. Go.
Now the next one on my list is one of the most disturbing. It's called Would You Rather. Fans of the Saw series and movies in that sort of subgenre will like this. However, while there is plenty of gore in this movie, your imagination is going to paint up pictures worse than what you see on screen because of the scenario. And the scenario is kind of like Dinner for Schmucks. These rich people invite some needy folks over to their home, and they can win a bunch of money if they play this game of Would You Rather. And the things on this Would You Rather game are horrific, and they really don't have an option, and it plays out pretty well. It is kind of like a one-act play is kind of how it plays out. It's almost exclusively in this one room, but it is fun. It's got some interesting, I don't want to say performances, it's got some interesting casting choices, including a porn star, I guess ex-porn star, and one of the guys from the Trailer Park Boys, among some other like TV actors and stuff that you're going to recognize. The Girl on the Third Floor is one of the newest releases on this list, and it's one of the newest things added to Netflix. This is a horror movie starring CM Punk. Wrestling fans knows who he is. Nobody else cares. He does an okay job. I mean, for somebody that's not an actor, I wasn't too distracted by the fact that he basically can't act. And he's remodeling a house. It's completely empty. It's mostly just him. He's the main character in the movie, and really weird stuff starts going on. But this one surprised me how gory it got. There's some really graphic imagery on this that once you see it, you can't unsee. It's one of those types of things. Now, it's not pervasive all the way throughout, like some of the top picks on this list, but I thought it was pretty good for a B-level horror movie. It had some surprises I didn't see coming. It had some effects that for a B-level horror movie were pretty good. It was much more brutal than I expected it to be. It's got a sexual component that was kind of surprising that it even existed, and it just felt a little different. I didn't feel like I was rehashing the same thing over and over again, which is way too common with horror movies, and I do recommend it. I was actually surprised how much I liked this one.
That night, one of their blades struck here. I should have died but for an accident of birth. My heart is here, on the other side.
Now, Ninja Assassin is loaded with blood, and I have complained about this movie before because it is CGI blood for the most part, but the reason why is because they stylized it. They really tried to make it look like anime, where blood kind of comes at the screen, it splatters in unrealistic ways, but sort of like beautifully gory ways. A lot of violence in this, a lot of killing, a lot of blades, a lot of blood, and a pretty good story for sort of a movie at this level. My understanding is that the script for this had to be rewritten at the last second, and it was written in like 2.5 days, maybe less, like 50-something hours, which is very, very short time, and it doesn't show. While it's not a masterpiece, you would never know that it was written so quickly and that it had so many production problems because they ultimately delivered a pretty good product. While the Wachowskis did not direct it, they did produce it, and I think the quality that they bring to stuff does show here as well. This did not make my brutal movies list. It probably should have, but I liked all 10 of those movies better than this one. I still really like it and do recommend it. It's a fun action movie. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. It's been on Netflix for several months. I do not expect it to hang around for too much longer. Speaking of things not staying around on Netflix, if you're watching this video in the future and you want to watch some of these movies and they're not available, or maybe you're in another country and you can't watch all of these movies, the sponsor of this video, CyberGhost VPN, can help you do that by allowing you to watch Netflix in other countries. It's a VPN service. It keeps your web browsing secure just like all VPNs, except unlike others, CyberGhost has specialized servers targeted at Netflix, Prime, other streaming services, and they allow you to see what's on in other countries. For instance, in the UK right now, there's a ton of big budget American action movies that I love that we do not have here, and I see you guys in the comments all the time from the UK complaining that you don't have these movies available where you are. You can get around all that. They have a 45-day money-back guarantee. They have excellent 24/7 customer service. You can use it simultaneously on up to 7 devices, and it works on Android, iOS, Macs, Fire Sticks, Chrome. Almost anything you want to stream on, it's going to work. And when you use the link in the description, you can pay as low as $2.75 a month to unlock all that additional content. I personally use it and have for months, and I know a lot of you have been using it as well. So if you want to unlock more content, check out that link in the description. But let's move on with the rest of the Gory movies.
It's a joke. Wait, what? No. Oh. They have the munchies. They have the munchies!
While I like Green Room a lot better than the Green Inferno, I have to rate the Green Inferno much higher on this list because it is gross. This is about a group of environmentalists that go out to the rainforest on an ill-advised trip, and they're taken hostage by a bunch of cannibals. I don't even know if hostage is the right word because they're cannibals. They fully intent on eating all of these kids. We'll call them kids for the sake of this video. And there's some really brutal moments in this. I do have to say, this is not a great movie. This is beyond B-level. This is Eli Roth, and he has a particular style. Fans of his love his voice and his style in his work, and Green Inferno is a great example of that. A lot of people do not like it though. It's got a weird sort of, I don't want to compare it to David Lynch, but sort of a not realistic vibe to it, and it kind of does come across as kind of shitty at times, but it is cohesive. It all is consistent and works together, and it's just part of kind of the way he creates these movies. I kind of like it enough to keep it on this list for sure, but I give you that big warning because this is not one that I recommend to everybody. But if you want to see some gross shit, watch it. If you want to see some grosser shit, watch the movie that inspired this, Cannibal Holocaust, which is not on Netflix, and, you know, for good reason.
When it comes to some of them mean bastards out there, it's the only thing does the job. You really only need to hang mean bastards. But mean bastards, you need to hang.
Some of you will be surprised to see the Hateful Eight rated where I have it, but this movie is way bloodier than you remember. I mean, buckets and buckets of blood in this one. I think it might be Tarantino's bloodiest movie ever. Not to say that it's his most violent necessarily, because of the way that some people die in this one. If you really love the Hateful Eight, Netflix has got basically a mini-series version of it. It is an extended cut. It's 4 hours. It's chopped up into 4 pieces, and it's not just BS. Tarantino has teased in the past that he's interested in doing like a TV mini-series. This is sort of a half-ass attempt at it because it's just an extended cut, but it does give you a glimpse as to where he may be going in the near future. And in addition to all the blood, I do love a lot of the characters in this movie, particularly the one played by Walton Goggins. I think he killed it. While everyone else brought their A game, Walton Goggins, this is maybe his best moment ever. I really like him as an actor, and everything he did in this movie I was completely impressed with. In fact, he's the reason I have revisited this movie more than once. So The Night Comes For Us topped my most brutal movies on Netflix list last week. I'm including it here as well because it is one of the most gory movies I've ever seen. That's not a horror movie. It's got horror movie makeup all through it. I mean, just split this, that, the other. It's really, really graphic, in addition to just these brutal fight sequences. So it sort of stands out on this list because it's different than a lot of the other ones, and it's really intense. Like I said, it topped that other list. I'll put a link to that video in the description. You do have to read subtitles for it, but it's well worth it. It's got some of the best fight scenes recorded last decade in it, and it just goes and goes. Like, the action does not stop. If you're totally allergic to subtitles, there's not many in the movie because the action is so non-stop. Once you hit the like 20-minute mark on it, longtime fans of the channel really need to check this one out though.
I fear that the only way to stop those possessed by the spirits of the book is through the act of bodily dismemberment.
For my number 2 pick, I mentioned I had a Bruce Campbell movie on this list, and it is none other than The Evil Dead. That's the original The Evil Dead. The remake is just called Evil Dead. It doesn't really matter. I happen to think Evil Dead 2, the sequel to the original, is much better. I think it's the best one. It sort of basically just retreads The Evil Dead and just does it better. But The Evil Dead lands this spot not only because I really like it and I think it's a good movie, but it pioneered a lot of practical effects, and not just practical effects, a lot of gore practical effects, stuff I cannot show you here on YouTube, or this video would definitely get pulled down, but very, very graphic stuff. And yes, it's dated, you can tell it's special effects, but at the time, this was cutting edge stuff. They were pioneering literally this new genre, so to speak. Not that it was the first one to ever do it, but it was the first one to do it in a big way, the way that it happens in this movie. And I think cinema overall is better for it, at least in my opinion. I love movies that really go off the rails like this one, and The Evil Dead is just a fantastic example of how to do it right. And before we get to my number 1 pick, I've got a couple of honorable mentions that did not make this list. First one being Bone Tomahawk. I know a bunch of you have been waiting for that one to pop up on this list, but I've covered it way too many times, too recently to include it here. Plus, the gore, while there is one of the most gruesome death scenes you're ever gonna see in a movie, in this movie, it's not till very late, so it's not really a gore fest or anything like that. I probably would have put it towards the back of this list, to be honest. Event Horizon recently topped my Twisted movies on Netflix list. It too has some really gory moments in it, and it definitely deserves to be here as well. But because it topped the list, it did not seem fair to include it and The Night Comes For Us in the same list, and that's the same reason Headshot didn't make the list. It's very similar to The Night Comes For Us. Not quite as good in my opinion, possibly even a little bit more gory, but it's the same director, some of the same cast members, similar production value, very, very similar story. So if you loved The Night Comes For Us and you haven't watched Headshot, definitely get on that. But let's move to my top picks. Some of you may know what it is. It's been a long time since I talked about this movie, but Terrifier is a low-budget horror movie that is very self-aware. It's got some very cheesy moments, and then it subverts expectations in some really brilliant ways, but it gives off the air of a shitty B movie. It's just expertly done, and you know what I'm talking about. It's people making stupid choices that get them killed. It's this killer clown that is seemingly unstoppable, kind of like a Michael Myers type of a character. And then this, without a doubt, has the goriest death scene I've ever seen in a movie. And yes, it is worse than the Bone Tomahawk one. I actually may have shielded my eyes a little bit, and I am not one to do that. I don't know that I've ever done that, and I almost didn't make it through this one particular scene. Not to mention a lot more gore. I mean, this one it's rough and it sticks with you. So you've been warned. Do not complain to me later if you decide to watch it, but I had a lot of fun with this one. They are working on a sequel, and I've got some additional content in the description. I've had multiple stars from this movie on my podcast and on the channel here, including Jenna Cannell, and the subject of the worst death scene in the movie, Catherine Corcoran. We actually talked about it at length on the podcast. There will be links to all of that stuff in the description, but that is the list. Let me know what you look forward to watching in the comments below. Let me know if this makeup looks slightly convincing on camera. And let's thank the Patreon supporters again. There's some new names here. I appreciate all of their support. These are the folks donating $5 and up, but there are $1 and $3 tiers over there at Patreon. So follow the link in the description to that as well, and you can see if it's for you. But I will keep making videos like this as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for watching this special episode, and you will see me on the next one without all of this.